as this drops, part 2 is out. Patrick,
Mhm.
I'm so excited to have you on the channel. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
Dude, thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, I know we were just talking a little bit about part 2 and just how much fans are obviously going to lose their mind from what they've seen. And, before
Yeah.
we jump into the craziness of that ending, I really want to talk about just, your introduction to this. I mean, like you were
Yeah,
saying
sure.
earlier on, it's high pressure coming into the show at this point. It's the final season,
Absolutely.
stakes are the highest. We're getting all these new characters around the world that are competing in this tournament, and they are
Mhm.
bringing, the most out of the characters that have been established. So, from the get go, how did it feel coming into this show, auditioning for your role as Axel, and just being a part of it?
Oh, dude. So, I mean, look, when I got the audition, to tell you the truth, I had only seen the first season of the show, and I had seen it maybe, man, it was like a couple years before that. So it had been a while. I wasn't like already a diehard Cobra Kai fan. Of course, I am now. But in that at that time, I was sort of like, oh, this is cool, and I remember getting it, and the role seemed like a bit of a challenge because I'm not a fighter. I've played sports, but I've never done any martial arts, and obviously that was a huge component of the character. Essentially, like he has to basically be the most feared person at the
Yeah,
Kage. So it
right.
was a lot of pressure to come in with people who have been fight, whether they just started training when they begun the show or they started the show, or they were people who had martial arts training to begin with. A lot of pressure coming in to deliver, and thank God for Ken Bearfield and Don Lee and Matt Mullins, my stunt double, all the people who were there to help me along the way.
Right, and
Yeah.
your
But as
character.
far as,
Sorry, you continue.
oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. No, no, yeah, I was gonna say as far as when I got to read for it initially, like I said, having not, I think in some ways it was an advantage not being a huge fan of the show, because imagine if you getting an audition for something that you care so much about and it's so personal to you already, and not wanting to get it exactly right. I think it was kind of nice for me because I was sort of like, I don't know the show that well, and it's just another audition. I do these every week, so let's just get in there and give it my all and see what I can do. And so I think that helped in some ways with the pressure a bit initially. Of course, when I got the role, I was like, oh God, now I actually have to deliver and make this thing great to really fit into the Cobra Kai world. And yeah, but that's pretty much.
Yeah, so coming into this world, like, what was it that drew you to this specific role of Axel? And that
Mm.
I'm sure it was such a fun process for the creators to find the actor to play a villain protagonist that is, again, like I said, is giving so much to the story now, and giving this
Mm.
sense of this isn't just about the Valley anymore. We're in Barcelona. We got the best around the
Yeah.
world competing, and Axel is
Yeah.
here. The lads and Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai. You got Kwon and
Yeah.
Yoon, but these guys are like, oh, okay, who's this? Iron Russian giant guy that we're gonna have to face. Like,
Yeah.
just what drew you to the role of Axel?
Well, initially, man, to tell you the truth, look, when you're in the position I was as an actor, where you've worked steadily on a couple things, but you haven't, you're never, until you're Brad Pitt, you're anything that comes your way. I would hope most people would be like, man, this is a cool opportunity. I'd love to be on anything, to work and get better and work with great people. So it was just exciting to, like I said, I wasn't a massive fan of the show because I hadn't seen all of it before, but I still was aware of the hype around the show, and it seemed like a really awesome thing to be a part of. So I was super excited getting the audition for it. But yeah, you pretty much just bring what you can in that moment. I think the real excitement starts when you've booked the job, and then you kind of see, look, I've got this character arc in this major show, and I need to come in and deliver and be the part of the story that the showrunners and the creators want, and fit into the world. And yeah, again, like I said, with Axel, it had to be such a strong presence because of him having to be the most feared fighter there. So that was definitely, I was very excited, very nerve wracking though too, just to
Right.
again, without that martial arts experience and to fill that slot was high pressure. But honestly, I feel pretty happy with how things turned out.
And I think that it is an interesting insight, because I feel like you can just focus specifically on this character, and not knowing so much about the show. I think like you said, that is like a cool thing. Like, you can just, as an actor, focus and really chime in on the character, and then of course you see the result after, when everything's done with editing and the episodes are out. So was Axel the only character you auditioned for with Cobra Kai, or was there any opportunity before that you wanted to enter the show earlier, or any other characters that you were trying to go for?
No, I saw your interview with Daniel, though, that he had auditioned for, was it Kyler? Who was it in season 1?
Yeah, Kyler.
Yeah,
I
that's
was like,
awesome.
wow, that's cool.
That's crazy. What a journey for him, man, to go from.
Right.
That's so cool. No, I had auditioned for the casting office several times and really liked them. So, but I had never auditioned for Cobra Kai. First thing, and also, just to be completely honest with you, man, I mean, when I got the request initially, my manager told me he was pitching me for it. I saw that it was a role that required an accent, and again, all these things, and I was like, this honestly seems like, I was like, they're probably just going to cast somebody who has an accent already. Like, really and truly, I was kind of a little bit, in some ways, like, having that aloofness, just sort of like, we'll see what happens, can help you as an actor. Truly, it takes the pressure off. When you hold it too tightly, typically those are the ones that you don't get, and things that you're just sort of, a little bit indifferent about. It helps. So I was, once I found out that I got pinned for the job and I was up for it, I had to wait an entire weekend to find out the next week if I got it or not. So that was, man, I didn't sleep a wink. I was just like, the whole time I was just like, please go through, and it worked out.
I think this character, I mean, he's so unique to the story, and when you got the character bio and just understanding what this character is, he has the accent, he's a very intimidating figure, and he, for me, I compare him to Ivan Drago from Rocky IV.
100%, man. Yeah, so many similarities.
Was that something the creators maybe said to you, like, this is essentially what the role is
Oh,
the Ivan
yeah.
Drago of the show? Right.
Definitely, man. And also, I know, like, you can see my hair right now. This is how I wear
Dude.
my hair normally. So when I showed up and, like, they had told me, like, hey, are you comfortable with a little bit of a haircut? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I knew it would help get me into character. But when I first saw that haircut, I was like, oh man, you guys did me dirty. But no, I'm just kidding. No, I was happy with it. I actually thought it was so cool.
That looks cool. It looks cool, but definitely makes you look scary. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's cool. It helped for the character. If I had this kind of floppy, that would never. And also, it was like too similar. I know Robbie already has that kind of hair, so it would have been weird if we had.
But it would have been cool if you still had that hair, because it's like it's almost like, when you face Robbie, it's almost like Robbie's like, shit, I'm fighting the guy, like, it's like a taller, more extreme version of me. Yeah, but no, you have the cool locks. That maybe that's maybe the locks can come in for a redemption arc for Axel.
Hey, hope off, right? Yeah, the locks. But wait, sorry. So your question was, remind me one more time. I went on.
No, you pretty much answered it about the Ivan Drago inspiration. Like,
yes, yeah, absolutely. That was referenced quite a bit. So I also went back and watched just Rocky just to sort of because that guy, like, he is essentially, he's a great prototype for this character, because I mean, it really is that. And that was an interesting bit with the fighting, because it played into I hadn't done stunts before. So for me, for Patrick, you could kind of see on my face at moments where I was like, oh man, I'm trying so hard to remember the choreo and what we've rehearsed, and to look this way. It's like, but I'm also doing all this stuff for the first time. So not only did I have to remember it and put it on and really deliver in terms of what the fight looks like, the whole time I have to look like I'm doing it really easily. and it's coming very natural to me, which is hilarious because for the character that's what would be happening, but for me as a person, I was like, oh god, this is like I'm really struggling here. But I think we kind of got we got a body language thing down, and sort of I like over time I got more comfortable in it with just sort of that strong, like, statuesque, like the uh, posture and all that. I think it helped a lot. Yeah.
Right, and I think that is one of the biggest things about the character, like you said, is his pose, his body language, and I think that intimidation is really felt at every moment. And we'll touch more on the vulnerability of Axel because that's something I really found interesting. Because at this point in the show, I think a lot of fans, we got like Kwon coming in, and these Korean Cobras that we've never seen anything like it, and then now the Iron Dragons, yourself, Reina playing Zara, and then Luwis playing Sensei Wolf. You got all these like these very intimidating characters, but they're all still unique to themselves. Joining this with Reina and Luwis, these guys, Reina's a 13-time Taekwondo champ. Luwis obviously is a badass. He's been doing martial arts for so many years now, and with his roles. How did you feel sharing the screen with them and entering the show with them as well, because they're as new to this show as you are, and with their martial arts background, did they sort of help you a little bit perhaps in when you
Sure.
were
Yeah,
filming?
definitely. Yeah, no, I have a million nice things to say about both of them. They're great, and they're both so talented, and also like I think just fit. It was really cool having for like the characters that came in, like Kwon and Yoon coming into like an existing dojo. I think that's a little more difficult in some ways because you're still like showing up and they already have this established group, and even just with like the actors and stuff, and everyone is so welcoming on the show, so it's not actually a problem. But I will say it was really nice, like having Reina, having Luwis, people who, because we're an entirely new group, and we got to like share that together and be supportive to each other because we're all newcomers to the show. So it was kind of fun to like have that built-in community already showing up, and it helps that they were just both great people. And I would say, yeah, I mean, Reina's so sweet and she's amazing, and she was very, very support, like, of man, I'll tell you what, like she really was so kind about being, whether she was telling me the truth or not about things were looking good, or but she was just so uplifting about like the stunt stuff, and always encouraging, and just having even one other person saying that is such a huge help when you're doing something so new. And then with Luwis as well, I mean, I just love the, because I obviously got to interact with him more than I did with Zara as a character.
Mm.
But the dynamic that we had, the Sensei Wolf Axel dynamic, was great, and he was, like I said, he's a very nice guy, but he's a imposing guy. Like he's a big dude, and he's a good fighter, and he's intense, and he really brought the intensity to the role. So it definitely helped that character dynamic a ton. Like there were moments where I was like, man, like we're really like in our intense scenes, he helped. Sometimes I felt like I didn't even need to act. It was just like this moment,
just like,
which is
okay.
great, which is like an actor's dream. Honestly, it's not scary, but it's great because it puts you into character and gets you immersed in the scene and what's going on. So it was awesome. Really enjoyed working with both of them.
Right, and the Iron Dragons, I gotta say, those geese are probably the coolest
Dude,
geese in the show.
they're
So
so
shout out to
sick.
Frank. He did
Yes,
such an amazing job this season. Every season, he does
Frank
such an
is such
amazing
a
job,
legend.
but
Yeah,
he had to do 16 dojos. So to set the statement with the
yeah,
different designs and locations, like, yeah, you guys probably have the coolest geese out of everybody. So I gotta say, like
dude,
that.
they are. I don't want to say that. I don't want to be like, yeah, we're the cool skis, but I mean, we kind of do. And also, the materials, like this canvas sort of. It was almost like everyone else. Man, I'm making this seem like we really got special treatment. I don't know, we didn't, but I shouldn't say this, but no, but the material was so nice too. It's like this very thick, sort of like canvasy, and it had this great sound when you're moving. So it made like
That is the
every
best
move
thing
you
about the
did just
geese.
like, even better. And I just love the color and the look. Man, it's so cool. And I like how obviously like they sort of are like hiding us until that main introduction in episode 6, right? Like where they sort of like they're showing the entirety, like the all the competitors and the different dojos, but you don't really, like, you kind of see us in the background for a moment, but it's like intentional that you don't really see us until that end fight, which is super, man, it's epic. I loved how all that stuff turned out.
Honestly was such a cool introduction as well for the characters, right? So
Yeah,
Miyagi-Do are getting, they're losing focus. They lose quite easily to Cobra Kai, and then Cobra Kai is like the big threat to them. But then being in this tournament, it's not just them anymore. And then you have the Iron Dragons, and it's just, I love the way they establish Axel and Zara. Just the other guys are like, no, you guys have got it. You guys go do your thing as captains.
right.
You show them what you mean, and how you're not afraid. You're fearless, and truly, like Iron Dragons is embracing no mercy than more than Cobra Kai. So,
Totally.
playing that, like, describe to me how you felt about that scene in itself, because that is probably one of the coolest introductions I've seen for any character in the show, if I'm honest.
Oh, thanks, man. That's so nice of you to say. Yeah, that scene was I think we shot that in like sometimes with filming, obviously you'll shoot out of order, but I think quite literally that was the first fight that we filmed. So again, I was like, that was like, for me, I was like, oh man, we're doing this thing, and we're not just practicing it in the dojo or whatever. We're actually out here shooting it. So got to deliver. But really fun because you got a lot of people around you, and you get the audience and the other people to kind of get hyped up, and it was a pretty like straightforward sequence of moves, which was great. It was like 2 takedowns it wasn't like too much, and that's what's awesome about it, is like they take down 2 of these fighters who we've watched like destroy everyone else. They take them down with such ease, just like right away. But that was man, I was so excited. And yeah, it's again, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's so important that as a viewer, you feel the power of these 2 fighters. Like you really have to, for the storyline to work, or otherwise you're just like, it has to. And then the showrunners really, made a point to like drill that home with us. Like you have to bring, not just in the way you're doing the moves and fighting, but also just like in the energy, and because you're still acting as you're there fighting, you still have to like put on a face, and so yeah, man, it was pressure to deliver that, but also just like really fun, and we felt good about the choreo, and I think man, I'm really pleased with how it turned out. But God, it was, yeah, it's such an epic scene.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to think of what else it was. Yeah.
I mean, this is definitely one of the, like I said, it was one of the coolest introductions for the characters, and also just I feel like the Miyagi-Dos really are the underdogs in this, and they you see how good those students do in your valleys, but again, this is the biggest tournament in the world with karate. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the Iron Dragons are, I'm assuming they were the undefeated dojo in this. So, is this, if you can say, is this so Axel is the current champ for the males, or is that still up in the air?
That was the story I was. What's funny is like I don't know if it's touched on. I'm trying to think in the actual show if it's touched on that. I think it's touched on that Sensei Wolf was his dojo was so. I don't know if Axel is the guy but I know that the Iron Dragons are the reigning champions, and I would imagine it seems like they've obviously, like, I like to imagine that he's been training with Sensei Wolf for a very long time and been with the Iron Dragons for a long time, and that he has been. I think like it would be hard for me to imagine that he wasn't the reigning champion to come in with that sort of confidence. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you would, if you hadn't won yet, I think there would still be this like eagerness to prove yourself. And so I don't know. I feel like I like to, in my mind, I'll say that's the backstory I've created. It might be somewhere in the, you would know because you know everything, man. So you're
that's what I'm asking.
You're the expert. Yeah.
The thing is, I what you said there like is interesting because the way Sensei Wolf is so hard on him, and we'll touch on that scene when he gets very aggressive with him when Sam notices this. And I think it would make sense. It's like Sensei Wolf's a 3-time champ from what they've established, and with Silver, I feel like this whole dojo, all the students in it, have won something equivalent. If they've not all won the Sekai Tokai individually, I mean, I feel Zara and Axel, it makes sense for them to be the current champs, especially the confidence they show within the tournament. Like
Totally,
Zara
yeah.
blowing kisses to all the other guys, which is hilarious. And then Axel just kind of like, yeah, no one's beating me. But like with this journey with Axel, I mean, again, you guys are clear villains of the show, and it sort of feels black and white up until the moment we see Sam notices what, pretty much the pressure that Axel has. And Sam's in this journey now where she's like become so mature not to judge new people she comes across. So I feel like Axel's the first, person that she kind of has that development with. And the scene on the beach, how did you approach this, like, complex personality of Axel's, especially like the feeling the pressure of the tournament, and how Sensei Wolf is really trying to push him even more?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously it was really important to make sure that vulnerable, and also like just from an acting standpoint, it's really fun to play a character. I felt lucky that the character wasn't just a one note bad guy, like villain the entire time, and it's fun to show. And honestly, like for me as a person, and you sort of obviously bring what you have to the roles that you do, I felt more like the vulnerable version of act, just for me as a person. Maybe not to that extent, but I sort of resonated more with that. And I like how it humanizes him a bit. Like it's nice to play because it also gives me it gives him somewhere to go, and like you almost start to watch the character as you, even as an audience member, not like looking through the eyes of Sam. You start to have a little bit of empathy for him and understand him a bit. You don't just see him as this big bad guy who's terrorizing everybody. You sort of, and I think you also you kind of want him to get out of the situation that he's in. You want him to, realize that it's not okay. And so it was really fun, man. It was fun bringing that to life. And honestly, yeah, like that scene is a really important one. And Mary's so great. Like it just felt really natural and easy. And you can like, I think just in speaking with her in that scene, it was just flowing really naturally. And I think she was making me feel cared for and seen in a way that nobody else really had. I feel like from the character standpoint. So yeah, it was a lot of, it was great, man. It felt complex, and it just adds an interesting element to the story in its entirety, and also just for my character on its own, it's more enjoyable for me. And then you kind of also like, it kind of gives you a little bit of insight like about why he is the way he is, why he's such a warrior, and maybe he doesn't want to be like that, but he's been conditioned to be like that. It's just interesting. It's fun. It's fun to have like a little, yeah, yeah, man.
It's
That's
definitely
pretty much
an interesting moment for his journey in this show. In the sense, because these characters, like, we want them to feel very villainous, and show like the Miyagi-Dos and essentially the good guys that are coming across all these types of individuals, these egos, these like tougher personalities. Axel's probably gone through more than any of those kids have, and they'll never know that, but they'll see the result of the way Axel is in the tournament.
Is this
And I
dude made in
think,
the lab or whatever?
yeah, like as
Yeah.
Dimitri said, it's like
I
Frankenstein
think it
and the
was.
Winter
It was
Soldier.
yeah. It was Hawkins. Yeah. It's so
I
funny.
love that.
I
That's a
love
great
it.
comparison as well, because Winter Soldier been Russian technically.
Right.
Um, you know, there's a sense of moral ambiguity I feel with Axel, despite him being a clear villain to the Miyagi-Do. So, how did you try and navigate that as an actor, and ensure the audience do sort of have that empathy for him, even though they know this guy is gonna do some damage to them.
Right. Um, I, luckily for me, I feel like that scene with Mary on the beach, there was enough in the text there and situationally that I felt like, and also even in the scene where you initially see the abuse I'm subjected to, I think how can as a person how can you, I don't care who you are, even if it's the worst guy in the world, when you see someone being treated that way, I think you're not a human being if you don't have some sort of feeling of, man, like this poor guy. And I'm
Mm.
sure, I don't know, it's sort of that whole thing of hurt people hurt people, not to be cheesy, but kind of, it's like, I think for me as a person, I've always, if someone is a certain way, if um they're maybe not particularly friendly or kind of mean, I always try to imagine what their side of the story is, like what brought them to be that way. And a lot of times it's kind of sad. So it's like, it's, I felt for him as a character, but no, in terms of like getting the audience to feel it and believe it, it's like really playing into something I think which is a strong suit for me with acting, is like really just playing an innocent side. And because I don't think of myself as, the harder challenge for that role was being the big bad guy for me. I naturally feel like I can play an innocent sort of, truly, like that's what comes more naturally for me. So I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna love this scene because it feels more natural to me. Whereas like the being the big bad guy was like, oh my god, I hope people are believing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and she's just she was such a great actress to work opposite of, and really helped me get there as an actor. But no, I think, yeah, I really do think between the scene of me getting hit and then that scene on the beach, I think I feel like most people will have their, at least be thinking about, maybe this guy isn't what he seems in that initial introduction that we have of him. Maybe there's more to him, and we want to feel for him a bit, which is good. Good for me. Not everyone just hates me, so it's good. It's
Yeah,
better.
I hope not. I hope not.
Oh no, yeah. Maybe they will still. They'll be like, God.
I mean, I find
You
that
never know.
funny that you said that, playing this didn't feel natural, because I know Brandon felt the same with playing Kwon.
Yeah, he's the nicest dude.
And
He's
like
like
you guys
just,
like are the opposite.
yeah.
I'd expect you to be the opposite, but
And
yeah, like
Alicia too. Like she's a sweetheart, and we're all playing bad guy, and Reina playing Czar. It's like everyone's just so nice, but they're playing, uh, which is also fun as an actor, because you get to stretch yourself a bit. It's
mm,
not fun to just play what you're good at. You want to push the limits a bit. So,
yeah.
um, but that's such an interesting point. It's so funny. Like, yeah, so many of the people who are playing these villainous characters are just the most genuinely kind people in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that moment with Sam and Axel though, because even when that scene with Kwon and Yoon, when they're a little bit drunk and they bump into Sam and Axel just together, Axel's willing to like defend Sam even though he barely knows her, and I think
Right.
that was proof that there was something I felt with my headcanon with that moment, is that Axel, there's a side to him that used to be like that, but it's sort of got lost within his journey.
Mhm.
And I think, what do you think Axel likes about Sam? Is it the fact she's kind of approached him with this, like, this openness, not to judge Axel? Maybe he always feels judged as a person. Um,
Yes,
is
I
that
think
like
you hit
kind
the
of the gist
nail.
of that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think well said. I think that's pretty much exactly what it is, and it's her sincerity too. And I think especially like maybe in the environment of the tournament. I mean, he's not. I think that's maybe where he's expecting to see it the least, because it's from it. Like I'm assuming he's never had his opponents have that feeling of empathy towards him, right? Like that seems like the last place you would get something like that. So I think to have someone see a side of him that isn't this monster is kind of what, like, it's like what everybody wants. You want everyone to see you for who you truly are. And I think she's just like really touched that she's concerned for him and care for him and seems to care for him outside of you know like he's probably been taught to care that the only thing that really matters is winning, and that's, you know, the positive reinforcement he gets from that. But she's showing him that, like, hey, there's I see that there's more to you than just this guy on the mat who's, you know, destroying everybody. And that's, yeah, I think it really touched
Right.
So yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun. I really enjoy the character arc there.
I think it's interesting when, you know, he has that awkward moment where he tries to go and to kiss Sam, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, I've got a boyfriend." Like, it
Yeah.
generally feels you can tell the disappointment is there, and that's like the last thing he was expecting in that moment.
Yeah.
But with the
Like
way
he
it sort of
walls
translates
after that.
yeah, the way it translates to Miguel.
Sorry.
That's funny.
My bad, bro. Trying to like get it, you know, there's like that lag over Zoom where I was like trying to say a joke. It took like
this
a
is
beat
why
to
I
get
hate
to
like
you.
being like so far away. I think it's my connection.
I know, dude.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, sorry. Keep going. I cut your question off. My bad.
No. You're good. So like, with the way that interaction went, you know, I feel like he sort of took that annoyance out on Miguel, and then there's some moments in like the latter stage of part 2 where Axel just or yourself, you're just staring at Shoto like, and it's so funny because it's like, yeah, this is actually in Axel's head. He's like, this is the enemy now. Like how does he feel about that? And why does he have such an aggression for Miguel, even though like he doesn't know this guy? Is it just because he's sort of taken away the happiness from him?
Yeah, I guess so. It's sort of like you have to, but like think about it, when you're really mad about anything, just as a person in general, anything in your life, you want to like you want to give that some meaning. You want to like either not like, I'm not saying you want to blame someone necessarily, but you want to like have a reason to be angry or like something to be angry at. And I think it's just the natural, you know, I think that's definitely like an immature side of him, but I think he just doesn't know where else to place that anger and frustration other than into his, you know, he's kind of just seeing red in the tournament. I think it's with Miguel, obviously, but I think it also is just everybody. Of course, he just happens to be, you know, it's like this guy ruined my chance at love or what. So it's like, I don't imagine like Axel out there. Like, I don't think he's had many girlfriends before this. I think he's pretty new to the whole, you know, I would assume. So yeah, I think he's like, I just felt this thing I've never felt with a person, and this guy's taking that away from me. I want to kill him. Which is not good. We don't want him to be like that. I mean, he just showed his like soft side, and we're starting to like him. And then he like doesn't win many points for himself there. But it makes it interesting as a story. And also, this is just a funny little tidbit, but that scene was so hard to film. It's like the simplest thing.
Oh, I bet.
The reason, like, just when Sholo throws me that look, I just thought it was so funny, man, and we were just cracking up. So it's funny how those little moments are like, they shouldn't be funny, but it's always something insignificant like that.
Do you remember how many takes it to do that scene?
It wasn't anything crazy because I think they like they had it going long enough, but it was more like, I don't know. I think it was probably more takes than it should have, but it was fun, man. It's always good to keep it light.
Right. So going more into the physicality and the fight style. I mean, obviously working with Don and Ken. I mean, these guys they've been in the game for a while, and you know, bringing a sense of this. You know, speaking about that Ivan Dragon intimidation and just the body language with Axel. I mean, how did it feel? You said earlier on about this is like, so essentially Cobra Kai is your introduction to martial arts.
Yes.
In a sense. So like working with them and working with this the strengths, you know, and the specific style for the character. How was that for you? What did you learn along that journey with the martial arts?
Yeah, it was very challenging. But like I said, maybe I mentioned this earlier, but like physically, I felt equipped to, you know, I wasn't like, oh, I'll be able to do this, but it was more so, I kind of felt like I would be able to understand the basics of it. I wasn't sure like what level I would be able to extend that to, and of course, I also didn't know if it was going to be me doing the really like basic moves, and then sort of just like subbing the stunt Matt in my stunt double, and then him doing a lot of the stuff. Or if it would be, and it ended up really being like I ran through every single move of choreography. Like we always did a stunt pass, but like I learned every single bit of choreography for all the fighting for the entire show the whole time I was there, which was a lot. And honestly, I really mean it. Like Matt Mullins, my stunt double, was the best. He was, I mean, Don and Ken were fantastic, but I worked with Matt a lot because he was just showing me that they would all go over the choreography together, and he would kind of take me through it. He was so helpful, man. I don't know what it was about him, but he was just so good at getting me there and putting, instilling that like faith in me that like, yeah, we're going to get there, man. We'll figure it out. So I was doing stuff that I didn't think I would be able to do. I was surprising myself, like there were certain tornado kicks and like roundhouse stuff. And I was like, I didn't even know I could really do that. And it was,
I'd be scared if you were doing that.
Yeah. No, yeah. Long legs. No, it was really fun though, man. And they made it so enjoyable and just, yeah, like they were so helpful. So big challenge, but really rewarding. And I'm pleased with how the stuff turned out. But I will say that when it comes to the fighting stuff, it really is like, there's obviously camera tricks and sometimes like speeding certain things up, but you really are going at a pretty high intensity when you're fighting. So you do end up getting kind of bruised up and banged up a bit, and sometimes you get kicked, and but you have to bring that intensity or it doesn't read. So that was another part.
Right.
You sign up. It's like, if you had a fight that day, you're like, I'm probably gonna get a couple bruises here, but like, let's go, let's get into it. So yeah, really
break
fun,
a few arms, break a few legs. I think it's
whatever.
I think that's the thing I like about Axel though. Like, it's he doesn't have a flashy style. It's like he's just brute that it doesn't matter like what you throw at him, as we see a little bit with that bout with Robbie, until obviously you throw him into the Cobras. But we'll get more into that. But would you say that Axel's like fight style is actually, does that reflect your fight style if you were like,
if I were a fighter
now? Yeah, like, do you think that would be the way you would go about it?
Probably, man. Probably. I would be like a lot of like throwing and big like not sucker punches, but like big like haymakers and yeah. And I think I like that about his fighting style. I mean, because it's not fun if they're all. It's like, first of all, we got Brandon, we got Kwon, and he's doing stuff that I've never seen before. Like, so I'm never gonna match that, and I think it wouldn't be cool if my character it wouldn't be fun to have another fighter who was like him in that sense. Like, he's doing the flashy, incredible kicks. It's like, I kind of like how Axel's just brute strength. He's just like, just a big guy who when he hits you, he might not do the fanciest punch or whatever, but when it hits you, it's gonna hit you hard.
Yeah.
So that was fun for me. I like that style. It also just I think it works better for his character, and again, just differentiating fighting styles from other people in the show just makes it more enjoyable to watch, I think. And yeah, that probably is how I would fight in real life. maybe not some of the kicks, but I don't
know. Well, if you keep training, maybe. I mean, getting the Brandon level is difficult, but yeah, man, like, if you keep it up, I mean, if you start doing those kicks, then rest in peace to all your opponents.
Yeah. Oh man.
I think would you say there's a weakness for Axel? Because he just dominates in every aspect of the fight. It doesn't matter what Kwon is throwing at him or Robbie or any of these other students. It just feels like he's so coordinated with himself as a fighter. So what would you say his weakness is? Because in the show, every character has kind of got this weakness. Is it with another character, or is it just a specific thing within their life that weakens them up? What would you say his weakness is?
From a character standpoint, or just as a fighter?
From a character standpoint, and how that could affect him as a fighter.
I mean, I think you sort of see his weakness with the Sam and Miguel situation. I think, like, maybe not being able to control I think his anger is what helps him in many ways, but I also think not being able to control that could end up hurting him in the long run. So I think, like, I mean, even with like what he did to Robbie, you know, when he throws him into Cobra Kai, I mean, like, that's not like, I won't say that doesn't make him a weaker fight, but it's also like that is kind of a weakness. Like, that's not how you do things in a tournament situation. Like, that's sort of an immaturity and something that's unacceptable, right? Like, just because someone's defending, you get mad at them and throw them into another group of people and start a big brawl. All right, you can't do that. That's right.
Yeah.
So I think he has some growing up to do, but again, all part of his character development stuff that we're gonna, you know, hopefully he learns and can get there, right?
With the tournament brawl, I mean, that was something I wanted to see in the show. We've seen glimpses of like a dojo brawl, but this tournament brawl, it really was crazy, man. It was so crazy, like the way everybody was involved, and you know, there's so many fights that happen so quickly, and you know, there's that moment when Miguel goes up to Axel and he's like had enough, and then you guys fight.
Yeah, it's
But
so funny.
before that, yeah, like just that moment, like Axel was pretty much the reason this starts. But then I think it's also Kwon. So the moment you throw Tanner into Brandon and all the things kick off, like, just what was going through your mind, knowing like this is gonna be the craziest shit, especially when we get to the point of what happens with Kwon.
First of all, it was Kwon's fault, dude. Come on, it wasn't my fault.
Really?
It was definitely. Come on, that elbow cheap shot. I was trying to encourage Robbie to fight now. What was going through my head with all of it? Yeah, I mean, in terms of like when we were shooting it, I just knew. I think everyone was sort of not. You aren't like dreading the day, but you just know how much work it's going to be, and you know that it's going to require a lot of attention and energy, and it's exhausting, man. Like the fighting is exhausting. It's very fun, but it's a ton of work, and you don't want to be the guy who's messing up your choreography when we have 50 other things to shoot. You don't want to be the dude who's like, is this guy gonna get that? You know what I mean? Like, so you need to be you got to be on it. So there's a lot of pressure. It's so hard to imagine now that I've like had the screeners and seen what it looked, how it turned out, obviously, and I'm so excited. But you have no idea what it's going to look like. You're just basically watching a bunch of people going mad, going crazy, basically. You have no idea how it's going to piece together. And it was just so fun to watch that for the first time and see how. And like I said, I was really, when Gunther gets punched, when he gets knocked down, I really, as a viewer, I was like, oh my God. And the music starts going. I was goosebumps. I was ready to go. I was like, this is crazy. This is going to be so fun. So just what a cool scene, man. What a exciting thing to have happen in the show, right? I mean, it's just great to have those unexpected moments and just all that craziness. It's just, it's so fun. So fun.
I think
even for me, so someone who knew what was coming, right? Like, so for an audience member who has no idea, I can imagine it's going to be just insane, right?
Yeah, I think the moment when, I mean, this again, there's so many fights going on, and then that moment when Axel sees Kwon kick Sam, and then the way the score works, because again, shout out to Zach and Leo because they do such an extraordinary job with the score. And you just feel that moment like, oh my God, this is it. Someone's really going to get the consequence of this brawl now. And obviously, Axel's defending himself, just like everyone else is. But the moment he sees Kwon use that knife, it's life and death. So, you know, I personally think it was justified in Axel defending himself. But of course, that might villainize him more to the others because he just killed this guy. But just when you read in the script that moment, like, how much shock did you have? And just, this is a moment in the show, like, we've never seen any of the kids die. They've been very close to things. And I think the closest was Miguel and Robbie's fight in season 2.
Yeah.
But this is the first time, like, a young student has died. So, like,
crazy.
Insane.
Well, first of all, really quickly touching on something you said, you think he saw the knife? You think Axel saw it?
Not at first, not until Kwon sort of throws that punch, and
Does
then he
the
goes,
yeah.
yeah, because like, and then obviously everyone's watching this back home on the camera, so they all know he's picked up a knife. But
Right.
at that point, when he sees
Right.
Kwon's like throwing it, that's when like, Axel obviously has to defend himself. But was the intention
Yeah.
for you to see
Well,
it
I was going to
at
say
that
this
point?
might be a hot take, and I don't know if you talked to Brandon about this, but because I'm trying to remember if we discussed it on the day, but part of me feels like he didn't. I don't know. Part of me is kind of like maybe he didn't see that he picked up a knife, right?
Okay.
Like I don't know. Maybe I'm not trying to stir up drama here and get no. But I'm just
I
saying,
gotta
like
rewatch it now.
maybe he didn't. Maybe, yeah, no, I mean maybe he did. I know obviously it's like you see that like Ralph or I'm sorry, Daniel LaRusso like notices it, and the people on the TV watching back home, but I don't know. It's almost like part of me feels like maybe he didn't see it. Maybe he was just defending himself, and because that's just what he does, and he was in the heat of the moment and he was defending himself because like yeah, again, there was zero intention behind what happened. But anyway, that's just a fun little point of, maybe I should have more of a fleshed out idea of what that is, but I kind of like leaving it open for interpretation for people to decide. But anyway, it was cool to hear your take on it. But yeah, no, when I read that I was going to be involved in a character death, I was like, oh man, especially with now seeing how just the way that Kwon has been received by audiences and people just love it. Oh, God, man, I have to do a dude who kills the guy that everyone likes.
Yeah, that's
So
tough,
that
right?
was yeah, that was crazy. But it's also I don't want to say it's cool that to be involved in a death, but it's kind of cool, man. It's kind
I
of
know
cool
what
to
you
be
mean.
involved
Yeah.
in something that's such a wild moment of the show, just of the entire show, not just the season. And again, just going to be, I think, really unexpected, and it just adds an interesting element to the show that we haven't had before, with like one of the, like you said, a young person dying. So yeah, it's an insane moment. I was just like, hey, when I got the script, I was like, I guess we're doing this. But yeah, there was definitely definitely you just not worry, but you obviously hope that fans are I mean I didn't want him to die, but I guess he had to.
Yeah.
So I don't
Was
know.
that
Something needed to stop the fight, right? The brawl.
exactly, like it was at a boiling point as well, especially when those two start to fight and then Kwon gets like Kreese's knife. But actually, you know what? We should be blaming Kreese, if anything. If that knife's not there, then maybe Kwon doesn't die and Axel doesn't have to defend himself against that. But
there you go. Yeah.
Actually, yeah, let's blame Kreese.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, Cobra Kai is their fault.
Yeah.
But was that always like the original? Was that always the intended version, or were there other versions you shot with that like death scene? Like, as in, was there a different way it was supposed to happen?
As in how he was supposed to die.
Yeah.
As in like the
was there
way
other
he felt,
versions of
like,
that?
or just like what's in terms of the way he actually is like the fight that we did. Sorry, wait, let me clarify. You mean like a version of him not dying, or more so just like a version of the way he was?
Yeah, the way, or if perhaps it was another character or anything on those lines.
Man, I'm sure they entertained a few different ideas, but I think from to my knowledge, it was always him. It had to be him. And no, in terms of the way he impales himself on the knife, that was the choreo for that was because it had to be like subtle enough where obviously he's this great fighter who falls on a knife, so he has to like something bad past that. He's not going to do that. Like it's going to be hard for him to do. Someone as coordinated and as good of a fighter as he is. So it had to be something like he was trying just a ridiculous move. Like, and then the way I counter it, I think we just, I don't remember when we landed on that move, but we did have to workshop it a little bit. And then on the day too, just getting the timing of that kick is pretty insane because we're spinning at the same time. Like I'm waiting for just the perfect time to jump up and then spin so that when he's coming to me, it has to time out so perfectly. Because if we don't, otherwise it just doesn't make sense. So it was a challenge to shoot. But no, I think that was always like once they landed on that choreography, they're like, this would be so cool. Actually, you know what? Part of me thinks that it was Brandon's idea. I want to give him credit for that. I feel like it was his idea to have me, like, maybe not. I don't watch. I'm going to say that, and then some guy will be like, "What the hell, man?" Like, wasn't. But I recall him saying, it'd be cool if he kind of swept my leg. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but yeah.
I think that is definitely the biggest cliffhanger we've seen in the show. I mean, it's insane. I mean, to do that in a tournament, and with what Daniel learns about his sensei, Mr. Miyagi, had killed someone in the tournament, and we know going into part 3, there's going to be more to come from that course. But just that point in the tournament's history, that's like the first time I think someone's died since that fight with Mr. Miyagi, and Daniel was the one that finds the student that's literally died. Like that's such a pinnacle moment in the show, and just as you said, like you're more aware of the fandom of Cobra Kai fans and just how that is. How do you feel that fan response is going to be to that moment? And obviously, once fans see this, they're going to be like, "Axel, you killed Kwon," or they're going to be like, "Hey, blame Kreese, Kwon." It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I hope. I hope it's. I would like to think that it's going to be a pretty, not an even split, maybe, but I hope that people. I think. Look, if you didn't have, if we didn't have if we never showed the side of Axel of him being like this vulnerable guy who might be a better person than we suspected. The scene with Sam, and then if we didn't have that. If we hadn't seen that side of him, I think, and this same thing happened, people would probably just hate me and be like, this guy's the worst. He's, just beating everyone up and he kills somebody. What the heck? But I think, I think it's clear to for the most part, it's like pretty clear that this was not an intentional thing. And honestly, like at the end of the day, it's like Kwon picked up a knife, man. We were all having a fun brawl and you picked up a knife. So it's kind of like, that's on you, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like so I don't think, but no, I think people for it's kind of fun and it's kind of fun to like point blame and find somebody who's guilty for it. But I think for the most part, like I think they're going to be mostly devastated that he's no longer that he's not going to be in the show because he's just he's so good, man. Brandon does such a good job. So I think they're going to be bummed about that, but I think hopefully they're going to understand why it happened that way. It had to happen.
I mean, it had to push the story, especially where it's going. And I think obviously you can't say anything about part 3, but what can you tease about what we can expect, especially with all this going on? Like, how is Robbie and Axel's fight going to be, and just sort of how's this going to affect things like going into part 3? If you can say anything to tease that.
Can I? I don't know. I'm man. I'm always worried. I have loose lips. I'm gonna let something fly and be like, oh,
nah, I get it.
God, I mean, just expect. I'm going to be incredibly vague here, just because I don't want to get in trouble. But no, I mean, don't expect things to like die. Not to be throw a pun in there, but to die down. I mean, don't expect like the excitement to kind of peak at that moment. Expect things to keep getting crazier and crazier. And yeah, that's what I would say. There's a lot to look forward to in part 3, but yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. Oh my god, man, I had so much fun. Seriously, thanks for bringing the good energy and just it was fun to chat with you about all this stuff, man.
Of course, man. Yeah, I love talking to you as well, man.
Looking forward.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about part 3. And again, like, congratulations on everything with part 2, man. I'm so glad like you came into the show at this point and what you've given for the story. Absolutely love what you did with Axel, and I just can't wait to see more on what he does, man. It's gonna be really cool.
I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, so great talking to you, and thanks again for having me on, and looking forward to chatting about part 3 down the line.
Yeah, man.
Am I gonna hurt feelings? Am I gonna hurt feelings in this game? Is it gonna be? Am I gonna be singling people out?
I don't know what's worse, killing Kwon or.
No, dude. Right, let's try it. Let's give it a go. Let's. I'm down.
Miguel Diaz or Robbie Keane. I know Axel is. He probably doesn't care, but what does Patrick think?
Dang. Ah, man. This is tough. I really like both of them.